Chapter 10 Avon Calling. The outer airlock hatch cycles open, revealing Maxim and Will standing shoulder to shoulder in the cramped space. Will nods to Max. We're EVA. They both step out of the airlock, the EVA thrusters in their suits jetting them across the distance between the Ghost and the Dreadnought. The moment they're away, the outer hatch closes and the airlock cycles back, letting Gabe, Zan, and Prothea enter. It's a tight fit. Inside the airlock, Gabe looks at the two scientists. I can control our flight. You will not need to engage your suit thrusters. The outer door opens. Both scientists take a step back, bumping into Gabe. With his small set of arms, he grabs a handle on the back of each of their suits and uses the EVA jets attached to his arms, legs, and torso to leave the airlock. Last out of the airlock are Jorlu, Murta, and Zephyr. Thankfully, Murta had had the foresight to pack EVA suits in sizes that would fit all his charges. Otherwise, Zan and Jorlu would have been forced to stay behind on the Ghost with Benny. It turns out getting scientists unaccustomed to spacewalks from one ship to another takes a really long time, even with Gabe handling them. The scientists are a handful, and it takes time to cycle them through the alien airlock. Over the comms channel, Benny complains. It's not my fault. If I was over there, I could have directly interfaced with the airlock control computer or something. His voice trails off on the last few words. Or something, Will says, looking down at the wrist comm built into the suit he's wearing to check air quality. Nothing breathable, at least not for any of us. Keep your suits sealed. He turns and heads down the corridor. This looks like any other ship, comments Maxim, running a hand along the wall of the corridor they're walking down. He looks up. Whoever lived here, they weren't much taller than us. Jorlu cleared her throat. Yes, I've noticed that. Zephyr glances from the tall buzzard to Will. He's right. This isn't that different from the Ghost or a peacekeeper ship. She trails off, looking down the corridor. Though, these are a bit odd. Her hand finds what looks like a ladder rung, except it's built directly into the wall. There's a rung every half-meter or so along each wall, and in the ceiling and floor. There is gravity, though. That seems weird, Zan observes. Big or tall, short or squat. Only one way to find out. Will looks down at his wristcom again and points to the left, toward what they assume is where engineering is located. Maxim, Jorlu, Prothea, and Gabe, head that way. You guys are Team 2. All of their wristcoms units beep, indicating a new shared comms channel. Will points towards the right. Zephyr, Zan, and Murta, with me. We're Team 1, let's go. Team 2 heads off in their assigned direction. Will looks over at Murta. Having fun? The Harrith man glares and shakes his head. Still thinking of selling this one to the highest bidder, pirate? Before Will can answer, Zephyr smoothly glides between the two of them. We're just looking around for now. Decisions later. She moves on ahead, rifle at the ready, to sidestep around a corner and point her weapon down the next corridor. Clear. Murta makes a growling noise, but moves past Zephyr down the corridor toward the next intersection. Clear. Will consults his wristcom. Thoughts on finding the bridge? Murta comes up beside him and reaches over to Will's wristcom, where he presses a button. From the back of his armor, 4 small spheres detach. Will jumps. I didn't know it did that. Read the manual, Murta replies. The spheres take off in opposite directions. Zephyr stifles a laugh as Will glares at her. Murta looks at the map of the ship that is slowly forming on Will's wristcom screen. Remind me why Prothea wanted you along? Zan grabs Will's arm and pulls it down so she can see the screen, then lets go. This way, she announces. Will looks down at his wristcom. I really gotta get my hands on that manual, he thinks. That's a big door. Maxim edges around another corner, nearly a half a kilometer from where Team 1 and 2 split up. Clear. Prothea follows him around the corner. What's that? She asks. Behind her, Jorlu also gazes down the corridor. A ramp! The squat Pelorian looks up at her colleague. Why is it a ramp and not a lift? Maxim peers down the corridor and the ramp to the level below. He shrugs. Ramps are easier for mobility. Things without legs and such can work with a ramp quite easily and quickly. Gabe is already moving smoothly down the ramp. He turns his head nearly 180 degrees while continuing to walk forward to speak to them. They are drastically more efficient and less prone to break down than lifts, he adds, continuing down the ramp. They do, however, take up considerably more space. The four of them explore the lower levels of the dreadnought, following Benny's directions as he scans the ship from the ghost. They eventually reach a corridor more massive than any of the others they'd been exploring. At the end, they find a massive blast door. Maxim stops about 30 meters from the blast door, the firmly closed blast door. Gabe, Prathia, and Jorlu hustle past him towards the door. Prathia runs her hand along the seam of the massive doors. How do we get inside? How can we be sure this is the engineering department? Jorlu asks, looking back the way they came. From Maxim's wristcom, an indignant Benny hollers. Because I said it was! I'm looking at the scanners right now. The power signature we detect is about 50 meters from you. I can see the power readings, but the compartment is otherwise shielded, so I can't make out the layout. Gabe walks over to the door. I believe I can interface the door with Benny back on the ghost in order to gain access. Over the wristcom, Benny chimes in. Yeah, just put the remote interface unit by the control panel and splice it in. There is a control panel, right? There is, Gabe replies, taking a small electronic device from the case he is carrying. While his smaller pair of hands attaches the remote access device, his much more powerful main set of arms is prying off the access panel. The remote interface is soon attached to the wall next to the panel, several wires strung between the open panel and the device. This will take just a minute, Benny says from the ghost. A few seconds later, he amends that. Okay, it will take more than a minute. How long? Maxim asks. You can't rush genius, you big Drennog. Just then, the door hisses and begins to open. Maxim exchanges a glance with Gabe, then looks down at his wristcom. Can't rush it, huh? Benny tuts. I'm just that good. The door finishes opening, revealing a massive chamber. Jorlu rushes inside before Maxim can stop her. Gabe, he shouts, following her. You and Prathia wait one. Jorlu's flashlight is playing around the chamber. Maxim's beam joins hers, illuminating sections of the space. It's enormous. Jorlu turns. It's... She stops as she turns right into the beam of Maxim's flashlight. Oh my! Very bright! Maxim moves the beam away from her face. It falls on a massive structure in the back of the room. Is that the... engine? Yes, Jorlu says, walking towards it. May we come in now? Gabe asks from the doorway. Maxim turns to see the tall droid leaning in from the doorframe, with the much shorter Prathia doing the same beneath him. He motions for them both to enter. Come on in, it looks clear. Prathia looks at the engine when she gets closer to Maxim. Wow, that's a big reactor. Gabe raises a handheld scanner and sweeps the room. Interesting. He walks off, then says, Interesting, again. Unobtainium? It takes what seems like hours of wandering corridors and ramps to arrive at a large blast door with a small hovering ball in front of it. This it? Myrta asks. Zephyr points at the small probe hovering in front of the door. So says the floating ball. Will tuts. These little guys need names. Zan joins them at the door. This looks imposing. I wonder what it's made of. Will touches the same control on his wristcom that Murta did earlier. The small sensor drone near the door darts towards him and returns to its docking station. Definitely gotta remember this command. Glancing at the display, he sees the other three sensor spheres making their way back to him, along with several decks worth of layout on the screen and an analysis of the door. Neat. So, according to Huey, the door is made of an alloy, titanium, unobtainium. Wait, that's a thing? Zephyr and Myrta nod their heads slightly in unison. Will continues. And vortimate. I don't know what that one is. Well, that one or the other one that sounds like something from a movie. Titanium, though, that stuff is strong. My old pod was a carbon fiber titanium bonded polymer. Zan reaches up and grabs Will's arm and wrist com, looking at the display. He's right. Interesting mixture, but strong for sure. Vortimate is still essentially experimental. Farsight has been working with Vortimate for just a few months. Whoever built this has clearly had much more time to perfect its use. Their science is decades, at least, ahead of ours. Murta is running his hands along the edge of the doorframe. Can your hacker get us in? He asks. I'm on comms, you know, Benny grumbles. And yes, I can get you in. I got Team 2 into engineering a couple of syntax ago. Will turns away. Max, report. We're in engineering. The squints, as you called them, are taking a look around. They seem rather excited. Will nods. I bet. We're about to head onto the bridge. Stay in touch. Affirmative, you too. At that, the Pelorian cuts the comms. Zephyr is at the security panel set into the doorframe. She has already got it disassembled and is attaching a device Will recognizes as something that Benny had handed her and Gabe before the two teams left the Ghost. She's talking into a wristcom to Benny. Yes, I did that. No. I can kill you at least 30 ways before I even have to pick up a weapon. Don't you forget it. Yes. No, wait. Okay, yes. Okay. The light just turned green. Within seconds, the massive doors part with a groan. Dust erupts from the seams. Before Will or Zephyr can object, Murta rushes in ahead. Both sigh and move inside, followed by Zan. Will heads left, Zephyr right, clearing the large space with military precision. Both announce, clear, at the same time. When they come back to the center of the room, Murta is standing there, where a massive pillar is glowing faintly. Zordon? Will asks, walking over to the pillar. He knocks on it with one hand. It echoes, sounding slightly hollow. He turns to Murta, who is standing near what looks like a console. That's the last time you rush into a room before it's cleared. You know better. He circles the 2-meter wide pillar of swirling lights, while Murta scowls at his back. I wonder where the Power Rangers are. Zan and Zephyr are standing over a console in the starboard bulkhead. Zan looks up. This, she says, pointing at the pillar Will is standing next to, is, I think, some type of access to the central computer. The fact that it's on confirms that there is some type of backup power available. As they watch, the light showing in the pillar changes slightly. Zephyr adds, I'm thinking we aren't going to get very far without more power. She gestures to the panel. This is barely functional. I'd guess there's a power cell somewhere in the base, meant to keep it running, between switching from main power to backup. However long it's been doing that job, it must be almost depleted. Will tilts his head, activating the comms in his wrist comm. Max, Gabe, any thoughts on restoring power? The past. Stealth system activated, the computer reports as the Ghost approaches Earth. Will consults the sensor display window he's inserted into the main display screen. It shows Earth, the Ghost, and several hundred somethings orbiting the Earth. Looks like the space junk industry is still going strong, he thinks wryly. Then he pulled up a high-resolution scan of North America. Okay, let's see what we have here. He pans around the image while the Ghost cruises toward the upper atmosphere. Oh, this looks promising. He slides the image over until an airfield is positioned in the center. Several large hangars sit off to one side. A few look big enough to hold the Ghost. Spanish Peaks Airfield, here I come, he mutters. It doesn't take long for the Ghost to penetrate Earth's atmosphere and begin its atmospheric flight, hurtling towards Colorado, Atmo engines roaring. Stealth systems can fool sensors, Will knows, but engines are engines, and the ones that push the Ghost through the atmosphere are loud. Sorry, Moose and Mounties, eh? Will says as the ship crosses over into North Dakota. Adjusting a few controls, he eases off the throttle for the Atmo engines. A couple of 1,000 feet below, some cows look up. He's timed his arrival, so he's passing over the central U.S. around 4 a.m. Minutes later, he is maneuvering the Ghost over a seemingly abandoned airfield. Computer, scan the area below. Are there any open wireless networks? Affirmative. 2 networks detected. Bill's Wireless and Airfield Public. Any life signs? Will leans forward in his chair. Negative. Will punches the air. Sweet! Activate program Benny's Doorbuster. He turns to look at the primary display. Acknowledged, the computer answers. On the screen, each of the large hangars is highlighted in blue, one after the other, until one in the northwest corner of the airfield flashes green. The massive doors begin to part. The program Zarix's hacker pal, Ben Ari, sold him works as advertised, cycling through radio frequencies until it finds the right remote door opening frequency. Meanwhile, the wireless connection is helping the ship's computer start familiarizing itself with Earth's internet. Yes, Will says, getting up from his chair. Begin automatic landing sequence. The Ghost shuts down its atmospheric engines and reduces the power supply to its repulsor lifts, bringing the ship to hover only a handful of feet off the ground. Then it tilts slightly, letting the repulsor lifts in each wing-mounted engine pod push the ship gently into the hangar. Will is in the cargo bay when the ship announces, landing cycle complete. The ship bumps slightly as it settles on the 2 massive landing struts that have deployed from the wings on each side of the main body, like massive birds' legs. Will walks over to the control panel and opens the inner doors, then lowers the cargo ramp. That done, he hurries over to a storage unit set against the wall of the cargo hold. Time to see if this thing works, he says, wheeling out what looks like a go-kart. It better work. I didn't even know this part of Colorado existed. Getting in and strapping in, he flips the switch the vendor on Fury told him to flip. The small vehicle hums to life. Carefully, Will pushes the throttle forward and pulls up on the control stick. The little cart lurches forward, then surges into the air. Yee-haw! He screams as he shoots off into the pre-dawn light. As he disappears into the distance, the Ghost instructs the hangar to quietly close its massive doors behind him. It only takes 2 hours to get from the old airfield to the southern outskirts of Denver. Will guides the flying go-kart, as he decided to call it, down an alley off of Broadway Boulevard. Finding a bunch of cardboard and other debris, he covers the go-kart as thoroughly as possible. He's picked the back of what seems to be an unoccupied building. Hope no one likes to hang around in this part of the alley, he thinks. The street is just starting to wake up. There's a small group of people at the bus stop nearby, and a few other people walking by. Will steps up to the bus stop, looking at the placard on the sign with a list of routes this stop serves. Perfect. This will get me to downtown. He's soon at Civic Center Station, walking towards where he remembers there being a coffee shop. In planning the field trip, he had the fabricator on the Ghost create fake items his wristcom can control remotely: a laptop, a credit card, and a mobile phone. All of them aren't much more than remote interfaces to his wristcom, but since wristcoms aren't a thing on Earth, he's got a bag of junk he's lugging around and a long sleeve shirt hiding his forearms. The coffee shop is about as busy as he remembers coffee shops being. Walking to the counter, he smiles at the African American woman behind it, thinking, guess coffee shops and college kids haven't changed much. Wait, it's only been a few years, not decades, dummy. He shakes his head a little and smiles again. Large mocha, please, he says. That'll be $6.24. Okay, some things have changed. Glad this isn't my money, or even actual money for that matter. He pulls out his credit card looking thing and swipes it. In a few seconds it takes for the point of sale terminal to read the card, his wristcom has accessed its software and forced the cell to go through. Even though the software is saying card declined on the inside, the screen is reading transaction completed. He smiles and goes to find a seat. Taking a deep breath and looking around, he feels his smile grow wider. Didn't think I'd ever be back here. Wonder what James is up to.